Progress does not begin with action, it begins with clarity. Most people try to move forward by pushing themselves harder, adding more pressure, more goals, more deadlines, more expectations. And yet, they still find themselves stuck, exhausted, or repeating the same patterns. Why? Because pressure doesn't create progress. Purpose does, and when you start with purpose, you create a foundation that makes daily progress not only possible, but natural. When you wake up each day with a clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing, the day becomes less about tasks and more about meaning. You are no longer forcing yourself through routines, you are moving towards something that matters. Purpose turns effort into intention. It transforms ordinary actions into meaningful steps. And the truth is, progress is not found in the size of the step, but in the meaning behind it. Most people confuse productivity with progress. They stack their schedules with endless to-do lists, believing that a full calendar equals a full life. But productivity is not the point. Fulfillment is. And fulfillment only comes when your actions align with something deeper. When you operate from purpose, every day becomes an opportunity to move closer to who you want to become, not just what you want to accomplish. Think about how we behave when we truly believe in something. We show up differently, we stay longer, we try harder, we withstand discomfort, we move forward even when the results are slow. Purpose becomes the engine that carries us on the days we feel strong and on the days we feel weak. Pressure, on the other hand, collapses under its own weight. It burns bright, but it burns fast. You can force yourself for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, but without a deeper why, the effort is temporary. Human beings are not built to run on pressure, we are built to run on meaning. When you know why something matters, you don't need to convince yourself to work on it, you are drawn to it. And this is what makes progress sustainable. You become consistent not because you're forcing discipline, but because your purpose makes discipline meaningful. You become reliable not because you're chasing perfection, but because you're committed to a mission. Purpose simplifies the day, it acts like a compass. When you know your direction, you stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. You say no more clearly, you choose more deliberately, you focus more naturally. Progress becomes easier because distractions lose their grip. The world might pull you in 100 directions, but purpose keeps you anchored to one. When you start with purpose, even small steps feel significant. You begin to see how a simple action, something as ordinary as reading a page, practicing a skill, saving a few minutes, or making one phone call, can carry immense weight when it connects to a larger, meaning these small actions add up, they compound, they build momentum, and eventually they redefine who you are. The most powerful people you know, the ones who seem steady, consistent, unshakable, are not driven by pressure. They are driven by something bigger. They wake up with a sense of responsibility, not to a task list, but to a mission. And this mission guides their behavior, shapes their habits, and fuels their progress. Their lives may look disciplined, but the discipline is a byproduct of clarity, not force. But purpose is not something you find once and forget. It requires revisiting, renewing, reconnecting. Every day you have a choice to remind yourself why you started. Every morning is a chance to realign. Progress becomes a daily practice of reconnecting with meaning, then taking the next small step forward. If you want to make progress every day, begin by asking yourself a simple question: why does this matter? Not in a general, vague, inspirational way, but in a deeply personal way. Why does this matter to you? Why is this worth your time, your effort, your energy? When you answer honestly, you'll discover that purpose is not a grand idea. It's a personal truth. And when you honor that truth, you unlock a source of motivation far stronger than pressure. When you forget your purpose, the day becomes heavy. When you remember it, the day becomes possible. And once you make purpose your starting point, progress becomes something you create intentionally. It becomes something you protect, and eventually it becomes something you live. Purpose is the quiet force behind every meaningful achievement. It's the steady flame that keeps burning even when everything around you feels uncertain. It turns daily actions into steps forward. It turns ordinary days into building blocks of transformation. And when purpose becomes your foundation, progress is no longer something you chase, it's something you embody. We often imagine progress as something dramatic, big leaps, bold moves, grand decisions that instantly transform our lives. This belief is comforting because it allows us to postpone action. We wait for the perfect moment, the ideal conditions, the big wave of motivation that will finally push us forward. But real progress, the kind that actually lasts, is quietly built through small, consistent steps. Not the impressive moves you post online, but the humble ones no one sees. The ones that feel too small to matter, yet these tiny steps become the foundation of extraordinary change. Every major transformation begins with something simple, far simpler than we'd like to admit. The challenge is that simple actions rarely feel satisfying in the moment. They don't give you a burst of excitement. They don't create instant results. They don't make your life look dramatically different overnight. And so we overlook them, we underestimate them. We choose to wait for something bigger. But waiting for big steps is the fastest way to stay exactly where you are. The power of small steps lies in their repeatability. Anyone can take a small step today and tomorrow, and again the next day. You don't need perfect discipline, unlimited motivation, or extraordinary talent to do something small. You just need willingness, you just need to show up. And when you string enough small steps together, something remarkable happens. Momentum. Momentum is not built on intensity, it is built on continuity, and nothing sustains continuity better than small actions. A small step is forgiving. It doesn't punish you on a tired day. It doesn't overwhelm you when life becomes messy. It doesn't demand more than you can give. It simply asks for your presence. It asks you to move just a little in the direction that matters. And that small movement subtly rewires you. It teaches you that progress is possible even on imperfect days, that growth is accessible even in small doses, that you have the power to move your life forward even when you don't feel at your best. People often believe that the reason they're not progressing is because they lack motivation. But motivation is unreliable. It's emotional, it fluctuates, it fades. What actually keeps us stuck is the size of the steps we think we need to take. We set the bar so high that it becomes intimidating, and intimidation leads to avoidance. Avoidance becomes stagnation. And stagnation becomes a habit. A small step removes the intimidation, it lowers the barrier, it makes progress feel attainable again. Small steps also remove the illusion that change must be dramatic to be meaningful. You don't need to read a book a week, read a page. You don't need to overhaul your entire health routine, drink one extra glass of water. You don't need to create a perfect business plan. Start with one idea on paper. These small actions do more than move you forward. They shift your identity. They allow you to see yourself as someone who takes action, someone who tries, someone who doesn't wait for permission or ideal circumstances. This shift in identity is far more powerful than any burst of motivation. Because once you see yourself as someone who moves no matter how small the movement is, you begin to trust yourself. And that trust is transformative. It carries you through uncertainty. It helps you show up even when you feel unprepared. It turns progress into a habit, not an event. There is also something deeply human about small steps. They respect your capacity. Life is unpredictable. Some days you feel strong and capable. Other days you feel tired, overwhelmed, or distracted. Small steps adapt with you. They bend, but they don't break. They allow you to maintain forward motion even when life challenges you. And progress built on adaptability is far more resilient than progress built on intensity. The great misconception is that small steps produce small results. But small steps repeated consistently create compounding growth. They turn effort into evolution. They transform a day into a week into a month, and a month into a meaningful shift in your life. There is no magic in big decisions if they're not supported by small actions. but there is extraordinary magic in small actions repeated over time. The reason many people quit is because they expect progress to feel dramatic. They assume that if change isn't noticeable immediately, it isn't happening. But progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. Seeds grow underground long before they break the surface. Muscles grow during rest, not during the workout. Skills develop quietly before they become obvious. Small steps teach you to trust the process, even when the results are not yet visible, and this trust is essential. Because when you learn to value the small step, you develop patience, you develop perseverance, you develop the ability to withstand slow seasons without losing faith. This is how true progress is made, through persistence, not perfection. If you want to move forward every day, don't aim for the big leap. Aim for the small action you can repeat, the action that feels manageable, the step that feels so simple you might doubt it matters. Because that step, repeated over time, becomes the invisible force that reshapes your life. Progress doesn't demand brilliance. It demands consistency. And consistency is built on small steps, taken not once, but again and again, until the direction you're moving becomes the person you are becoming. We often place too much trust in motivation. We wait for it, crave it, chase it, hoping it will give us the energy to move, to change, to progress. And on some days, motivation does show up. It feels exciting, powerful, electrifying, but the truth is, motivation is a guest. It comes when it wants, leaves when it wants, and rarely stays long enough to build anything meaningful. If your progress depends on how motivated you feel, then your progress will always be inconsistent. Motivation makes you start. Discipline makes you continue, and it is continuation, not excitement, that creates growth. Discipline is not loud, it is not glamorous, it does not demand attention. Discipline shows up quietly, in the small and uncomfortable moments when motivation is nowhere to be found. It shows up early in the morning when the bed feels warm. It shows up late at night when you're tired but not yet finished. It shows up on the days when you don't feel inspired, confident, or ready. Discipline is the steady friend that walks beside you long after motivation has abandoned you. People often misunderstand discipline. They think it means perfection or rigidity or forcing yourself without feeling. But discipline is simply the ability to keep a promise you made to yourself. It is the willingness to do what matters, even when the emotion of the moment changes. It is a commitment to who you want to become rather than what you feel like right now. Discipline does not remove your humanity, it strengthens your integrity. It gives you the ability to move despite discomfort, to act despite doubt, to progress despite fear. Motivation asks, do I feel like doing this? Discipline asks, will this move me forward? Only one of those questions leads to consistent growth. Human beings are emotional creatures. Our feelings change with the weather, with stress, with sleep, with the smallest inconvenience. If your progress is tied to feelings, it becomes unpredictable. But if your progress is tied to a commitment, a standard, a principle, a promise, then even your worst days can still become productive. Discipline gives you something motivation never could, reliability. You become someone you can count on, someone who keeps moving, someone who grows even when the conditions are not ideal. There is a quiet confidence that comes from discipline. When you consistently show up for your life, you begin to trust yourself, and self-trust is one of the most powerful forms of confidence a person can possess. Confidence is not the belief that you will always succeed. It is the belief that you will continue, even if you don't. That you will try again, that you will return to the path. This confidence is not built by motivation. It is built by the repeated act of showing up. Discipline also protects you from the illusion that everything must feel good. Many people quit because progress becomes uncomfortable. They assume discomfort means something is wrong. But growth requires discomfort. It requires friction. It requires challenging your limits, not avoiding them. Discipline embraces discomfort not because it is enjoyable, but because it is meaningful. And when something is meaningful, you are willing to endure the difficulty that comes with it. There will be days when you feel tired, days when you feel discouraged, days when you question whether any of this effort is worth it. Motivation cannot help you on those days, but discipline can. Discipline steps in when your emotions mislead you. It reminds you of your purpose. It reminds you of your direction. It reminds you that progress is built on persistence, not mood. You do not need perfect energy to make progress. You need consistency. And consistency is born from discipline. The beauty of discipline is that it gets easier with practice. It is not a fixed trait reserved for a select few. It is a skill, a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes, and as it becomes stronger, the effort becomes more natural. The actions become more automatic. The resistance becomes weaker. What once felt heavy begins to feel normal. What once felt overwhelming becomes simply another part of your day. Discipline also creates freedom. It frees you from the chaos of your own impulses. It frees you from procrastination, from inconsistency, from the anxiety of unfinished intentions. When you live without discipline, you are controlled by whatever you feel in the moment. But when you live with discipline, you control the moment. You decide the direction, you shape your own day rather than letting the day shape you. Motivation might give you a spark, but discipline builds the fire. Motivation might open the door, but discipline walks through it. Motivation might help you begin, but discipline ensures you finish. If you want to make progress every day, you cannot rely on how you feel. You must rely on what you value. You must rely on the commitments you've made. You must rely on the small, repeated actions that move you closer to your purpose. The truth is simple. The people who grow the most are not the ones who feel the best. They are the ones who act the most consistently. They do not wait for the right moment. They do not depend on inspiration. They depend on discipline. And because of that, they progress not occasionally but daily. We tend to believe that progress only counts when it looks perfect. We believe that every action must be flawless, every effort must succeed, and every day must feel like a victory. And when it doesn't, we feel like we have failed. But the truth is that progress is never perfect. Life is messy. Circumstances are unpredictable. Energy levels fluctuate. Motivation fades. And yet, the people who move forward every day are not the ones who wait for perfect conditions. They are the ones who embrace imperfection and keep going anyway. Imperfection is not a flaw, it is the reality of life. The sooner we accept that, the sooner we can take meaningful action. Waiting for everything to align perfectly is a trap. It delays action, it creates frustration, it prevents growth. If you want to make progress, you must be willing to act even when conditions are less than ideal. You must be willing to show up even when you feel weak, distracted, or uncertain. You must be willing to take steps forward at 40% effort, because 40% is far better than zero. Every day presents obstacles. Some days are chaotic, some days are slow. Some days test our patience, our endurance, and our will. If we insist that progress requires perfection, we surrender every day that isn't perfect. We hand over control of our growth to circumstances, moods, and chance. But progress is not about the perfect day. It is about the consistent day. It is about showing up, learning, adjusting, and continuing even when we would rather give up. Mistakes are part of progress. Failure is part of progress. Life is not a straight line. It is full of twists, setbacks, and detours. But each of these moments contains a lesson that becomes part of your growth. When you embrace imperfect days, you embrace learning. You embrace adaptation, you embrace resilience. The person who progresses every day understands that showing up, even imperfectly, is more valuable than waiting for the perfect strategy, the perfect timing, or the perfect mood. Perfection creates fear, fear creates hesitation, hesitation creates stagnation. The desire to be perfect often keeps us from taking even small steps forward. But imperfection removes the fear. Imperfection allows experimentation. It allows trial and error. It allows you to move forward, adjust, and refine. It allows growth without judgment, and growth without judgment is sustainable, repeatable, and transformative. Some days, showing up at 40% effort is enough to maintain momentum. Some days, the act of starting is more important than the result of finishing. This is how habits are formed. This is how consistency is built. This is how progress compounds. Life will never wait until you feel ready. The world doesn't pause for your perfect moment. It keeps moving, and the people who progress every day are the ones who choose to move with it, even when they are imperfect. Perfection is an illusion. It creates an unattainable standard that few can meet. And in chasing perfection, we often miss the opportunity to move forward at all. Imperfect progress, however, is tangible. It is actionable. It is real. It is something you can measure and build upon. And when you accumulate imperfect progress day after day, week after week, month after month, it becomes undeniable transformation. There is also a freedom that comes with embracing imperfection. When you stop expecting every day to be flawless, you release yourself from the pressure to perform. You release yourself from comparison. You release yourself from the endless cycle of self-judgment. You begin to act not out of fear of failure, but out of commitment to growth. You begin to show up consistently because your goal is not perfection, it is progress. The people who progress every day understand that setbacks are temporary. Missteps are data, not defeat. They analyze, adjust, and keep moving. They understand that the journey is iterative, not linear. They understand that the only way to grow is to take imperfect action repeatedly, refine along the way, and maintain momentum regardless of the obstacles. Every action, no matter how small or imperfect, compounds into measurable results over time. Progress is a habit, and habits are built through repetition, not perfection. The key is to show up, to start, to continue, to embrace each day as an opportunity to move forward, even imperfectly. And the cumulative effect of these imperfect actions is profound. They build resilience, skill, confidence, and momentum. They create a life where growth is inevitable because the act of showing up becomes ingrained in your identity. The lesson is simple. Don't wait for perfect days. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for the perfect version of yourself to appear. Progress is made by those who act, adjust, and continue, regardless of the circumstances. It is made by those who are willing to be imperfect. It is made by those who understand that showing up consistently, intentionally, even imperfectly, is the single most powerful driver of change. Your imperfect days are not failures, they are opportunities, they are steps forward, they are proof that you are moving, they are evidence that you are growing. The moment you embrace this truth, you free yourself from the tyranny of perfection and unlock the ability to make progress every day, no matter what. Progress is not a single act. It is a cycle. Every day you take action, you reflect, and you adjust, and yet most people rush through this cycle as if reflection and adjustment are optional. They act without learning, repeat without thinking, and expect results without understanding the process. But the truth is, reflection and adjustment are what turn ordinary effort into meaningful progress. Without them, you are merely moving, not growing. To make progress every day, you must learn to observe yourself, evaluate honestly, and make the necessary refinements before moving forward again. Reflection is not about judgment, it is about awareness. It is about seeing clearly where you have moved forward, where you have stumbled, and where you need to focus next. Many people avoid reflection because it feels uncomfortable. They are afraid to face their mistakes or shortcomings. But avoiding reflection is a decision to stay stagnant. When you take the time to reflect, you gain clarity. You gain perspective. You learn what works, what doesn't, and what must change. Reflection turns experience into insight, and insight into action. Adjustment is the natural companion to reflection. To adjust means to take what you've learned and apply it intelligently. It means not repeating the same mistakes, not being rigid in your habits, and not allowing pride or ego to dictate your actions. Adjustment is humility in motion. It is recognizing that your current approach may need refinement, and having the courage to implement that refinement immediately. Without adjustment, reflection is meaningless. Reflection without action is just rumination. Progress happens when reflection leads directly to intentional change. Daily progress is a loop: act, reflect, adjust, repeat. And the beauty of this loop is that it transforms every action, successful or failed, into a step forward. Even mistakes become valuable because they provide information that fuels improvement. The people who make consistent progress understand that the goal is not to avoid failure, but to learn from it. They embrace the data in every outcome and use it to guide the next move. This mindset shifts their focus from short-term results to long-term growth. Consistency is strengthened by this cycle. Acting without reflection leads to mindless repetition. Reflecting without action leads to indecision. Adjusting without reflection leads to guesswork. But when these elements work together, you create a rhythm that produces predictable growth. You begin to see patterns in your behavior, in your decisions, in your results. You start to understand what moves you forward and what holds you back. And understanding is power, the kind of power that transforms ordinary effort into exponential progress. Reflection also builds self-awareness. When you pause to assess your actions, you learn about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your habits, and your triggers. This self-knowledge is invaluable because it allows you to make informed choices. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or luck for your lack of progress. You take responsibility for your actions and their outcomes. Responsibility breeds agency, and agency breeds consistent movement toward your goals. Progress is never given. It is claimed by those willing to observe themselves honestly and act deliberately. The people who succeed consistently are not necessarily the most talented or the most intelligent. They are the ones who embrace the cycle of reflection and adjustment relentlessly. They understand that mastery is not an event, it is a process, and the process requires patience, persistence, and humility. It requires the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and the courage to change course when necessary. They are not perfect, but they are persistent, and persistence is what leads to lasting progress. Small adjustments compound over time. The changes that seem insignificant in the moment, when repeated consistently, create a trajectory that is unstoppable. A minor tweak to your routine, a slight improvement in your approach, a subtle shift in your mindset, these are the actions that accumulate, turning ordinary days into extraordinary results. The secret of progress is that it doesn't demand radical change all at once. It demands thoughtful, continuous refinement over time. Reflection and adjustment also protect you from stagnation. Life has a way of lulling us into routines that feel productive, but are actually ineffective. Without taking the time to step back and evaluate, you can spend years repeating patterns that do not serve you. The people who make progress every day disrupt this pattern. They pause, they assess, they adjust. And this willingness to intervene in their own process keeps them moving forward when others remain stuck. The discipline of reflection and adjustment creates momentum. Every day you examine what worked and what didn't, and you act on that knowledge. You gain confidence. You gain clarity, you gain direction, and momentum breeds motivation. Ironically, the very thing most people believe they need to start motivation is actually a byproduct of consistent, thoughtful action. When you act, reflect, adjust, and repeat, motivation follows naturally because you are seeing tangible evidence of growth. Progress is not an accident. It is intentional, it is deliberate, and it is maintained through the combination of action, reflection, and adjustment. The people who make progress every day understand that they are not chasing perfection, they are refining the process. They are not waiting for inspiration, they are cultivating habits. They are not hoping for results, they are building systems that make results inevitable. Reflection and adjustment are the invisible engine behind every step forward. If you want to make progress every day, never underestimate the power of this cycle. Take action, observe honestly, make adjustments, and repeat without fail. Embrace the lessons in every outcome, and let them guide you to better decisions tomorrow. This is how you turn ordinary effort into consistent growth. This is how you move closer to your purpose each day. This is how you ensure that no matter the obstacles, no matter the setbacks, no matter the imperfect moments, you continue to advance. Daily progress is not luck. It is strategy, awareness, and relentless refinement.